All right, back now to the President's address. It's not exactly clear what he's going to say tonight, but one way or another, I guess, we are facing a COVID Christmas. The country is in a second wave, and the numbers are telling us a story that is anything but perspective. Data reporter Michael Marillier is working this story for us. He's at our video wall. The question, I guess, Michael, on everyone's lips, is Christmas cancelled?
Well, I'd hate to be the person to cancel Christmas, and I'd hate to be the president tonight, Jeremy, if he does actually take that decision, because he will take all sorts of flack. But we're going to take a look at some of the numbers which government could use to take their decision when it comes to restrictions, any kind of restrictions which we might see. What you're going to see here, Jeremy, is the historical trend in terms of deaths in South Africa in 2018 and 2019. So it's pre-COVID numbers and how they fluctuate, often on a seasonal basis. For example, during winter, they tend to spike, and during December and January, they tend to spike as well, often because of the abuse of alcohol, also because of the carnage on our roads. So that blue line is the historical trend. The white line is what we've seen in 2020. And take a look at those numbers, Jeremy. The trend line, on average, in 2018, 2019, we were seeing just under 10,000 deaths in the middle of July. Compare that to the peak of South Africa's first wave. We saw nearly 16,500 deaths. So COVID taking a massive, massive toll. And when you look at this graph, you might think, well, the worst is over. Most of these trend graphs and trend lines are starting to converge with the actual number. But I'm afraid to say, Jeremy, we're now seeing those lines diverging. Let's bring up our next stats. The most recent figures are from the week of the 25th of November. So historically, we've had about 9,400 deaths in that particular week. But take a look at the actual number for 2020, Jeremy. We're talking about nearly 10,400 deaths. So we are seeing a divergence in terms of the trend and the actual numbers in terms of mortality. What does it look like for Christmas? Well, remember the fact that we've had already 10,385 deaths in a single week at the end of November. The numbers tend to rise in December for those reasons I just mentioned. The historical trend, if we bring that up, 9,690 deaths. That's in a normal year. If we carry on at the rate that we're going, Jeremy, we can expect those numbers to be a lot higher than the trend line. Of course, the trend line is based on a non-COVID year. So clearly, Jeremy, those lines are something the government will be really concerned about.
Let's do a bit of future scoping if we can. Let's assume that more people are going to stay home over the holidays. I think that's a given. In theory, then, that should reduce the number of deaths on the road.
Yeah, and that could be a silver lining, if there is a silver lining in all of this, Jeremy. Let's bring up our numbers for the Easter period. So what's interesting about Easter, Jeremy, is, again, like Christmas, you tend to see a lot of people on the roads traveling between the provinces. The difference, though, is that this year we had an Easter under lockdown, so you didn't have that movement between the provinces. You didn't have a lot of traffic on the road. And what's interesting about this, Jeremy, during the week of the 22nd of April, which is smack bang in the middle of Easter, we usually have about 9,000 deaths in South Africa. That's in a single week. But you look at the actual number for 2020, and we're talking about 7,600 deaths. So it really paid off in terms of those numbers, helping to reduce the numbers in terms of COVID, as well as the road deaths during the Easter period.
All right, on the back then of your reporting, this year's, and Michael Marillier, thank you, this year's